Good evening and welcome back to another live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel after what has been quite a hectic 48 hours or so on the YouTube channel, of course, with our release of the Christian Ramirez interview out into the wilderness. And a very well received interview, I think it's fair to say. I think we gave the Scottish journalists a really easy Monday Calum because copy, paste, and post seemed to be the aim of the day.
It did. Lots of quotes used. Not happy about the sun using it, mind you. That upset me a little bit. But yeah, it sort of they sort of ran with it. I think that's the best way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah, not like them to sensationalize a headline either. Maybe kind of criticizing the fans directly for putting Christian in hospital, where those that will have listened to the interview will know that, of course, that was not the case. It was a build-up of other things. But we just want to, thank Christian again and his management team for putting his faith in us to tell his story. Believe who you will about who he turned down, but the ABZ guys have said it was not them. But yeah, we just want to clear up as well that point, but as also a point that Noel Blaha made on Twitter as well. As good as it has been to hear Christian's side, of course, because there is two sides to every story. I think Noel does make a really good point. There is, of course, three sides to every story. Jim Goodwin's side, Christian's side, and probably the club side, which has some element of truth. So there's probably some elements of truth from what we've heard, but the actual truth could remain a mystery, or believe whatever side you want. But good that he's been able to put out his point of view, and good to have Noel joining us tonight after I saw the video of you leading out Trevor Lawrence at the baseball over in Florida. So good that you've not gone too much big time and you can still tune into us tonight, Noel. But yeah, I did wonder that myself. Of course, the cliffhanger, did he make it to the airport to drop his dad off in time? I guess we'll never know.
I know, another mystery. But I think we just want to reiterate our thanks not only to Christian but to everyone who's got involved and said very nice things about the interview as well. I don't know about you, Glenn, but I was kind of taken aback by it all.
Yeah, I didn't think the interview would have as big an impact as I suppose it did in the end. And I know we were speaking last night about how motivated it's made us to do more player interviews, and we do currently have a couple of irons in the fire. We're just, we've got the permission from the club. We're just needing the player in question to agree to come on. So we'll be chasing that up because we think it could be just as good as that last interview. But certainly any future interview has got a lot to live up to. But of course, all our player interviews are available in the interview section on YouTube, and it's episode 185, available in all its glory in one sitting for you to sit back and listen to or watch as well. You don't need to wait around for anything else to come. So you can catch up on that if you haven't already after we look back at the weekend's win over St Johnstone and take a look at Derek McInnes's second return to Pittodrie of the season as he brings his Kilmarnock side to Pittodrie as the Dons look to continue that push for third place. So a lot to discuss in this hour, Calum. Something we love doing live on the YouTube channel, and of course, great to have a lot of you with us providing your thoughts as well to the show as well.
Absolutely. I would like to, however, also add the last probably thing we'll say on the Christian Ramirez interview for now. Saw Phil at work today, and he has been DM'd about the Columbus Crew shirt. So I'm jealous, but he's a man of his word, if nothing else.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, we'll make sure that we send Ramirez a pack of Rowies to the Columbus training ground as well, since he never sampled them here. But Kaiser, no, we did not get any cut of any newspaper using anything from the interview because, of course, that would mean they would have had to ask permission to lift it. But they did, of course, link the video on their websites. So anybody that did then click on the video, we did get, I suppose, something that 0.003 pence per view that works out as, or something like that. But yeah, no permission was sought from any of those newspapers. But as we said, we're going to look back at stuff on the pitch, of course, and it was a fourth win in a row for the first time in over 22 years. Calum, mental stat in itself, as an unchanged Dons 11 saw out a rather gritty, maybe not pretty as well, 1-0 win over the Perth Saints.
Oh man, it was awful. Thankfully, I was adequately rubbered prior to kickoff, because it was a terrible game. It wasn't pretty. However, you sort of do get the sense that that's the type of one we wouldn't have won under probably the last two managers. Which is nice to see that we seem to turn it around, and good teams win those kind of games. People always say that about champions. Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Maybe next season, but when there is sort of games like that where there's just no flow and you still come away with the 3 points and a clean sheet, mainly thanks to Belarus, let's be honest, it's certainly a bonus, but it wasn't a classic, to use that old cliche.
Yeah, well, let's not forget we've also managed to win some silverware. I don't actually know if it's silver. We've got a couple of awards this week, which we'll come on to later on in the episode as well. But good to see you're not getting carried away with yourself for next season already. Those that managed to catch that. But as you said, probably a win that we wouldn't have got under the last couple of managers. Of course, that's now 2 away wins for Barry Robson, the same amount that Jim Goodwin managed in his entire tenure at Aberdeen. And I mean, you said it wasn't the best game of football. Whenever has an Aberdeen St Johnstone game down in Perth been a good game of football? We are unbeaten in 6 of our last 7 games down there, but I think all 7 games have been 1-0 wins either way, and there was 1-0 in there either. So it's not a game to expect goals in, or any great standard of football.
No, absolutely not. And I don't think the pitch helped that whatsoever. Particularly recalling when Liam Scales tried to cross the ball, it bobbled up and just bounced maybe slightly off the top of his foot straight out for a goal kick. And that was a bit of a disaster. But that didn't help. And I think Callum Davidson's been complaining about the pitch sort of all season. But hey, we got the 3 points in the end. Not convincing. I was very worried towards the end in particular. Sort of felt maybe that's still the PTSD from Jim Goodwin that we were going to concede, sort of Ross County-esque.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at the chance right at the end and the way it's clawed out, you're just thankful that it did stay out. But as Dave McLennan rightly points out, a win is a win, and an away win at that. 2 for the price of 1, stuff that we definitely didn't see a lot in the first part of the season. And I think what you said is very fair, because it's probably a type of win we wouldn't have seen even earlier in the season, let alone under previous couple of management, as you alluded to, because there seems to be a new lease of life, a new belief about this squad that we didn't have before, and probably just justifies the reason why Barry Robson has been given the job until the end of the season.
I think so. It's certainly encouraging that not only can we carry on that home form, but we are starting to pick results up on the road. And I suppose with the Dundee United one as well. Certainly looking at the match stats, you couldn't say we were particularly on top for a lot of it in that game either. But that's 2 away wins where we've not been at our best. Obviously Dundee United a bit more convincing than St Johnstone, but I think it's just another step in the right direction, and also very important given results elsewhere completely went our way.
Yeah, and when you look at last season in particular, when results went in our favor, we never capitalized on it. And for once, we've actually been able to do that. And yeah, it just seemed to be the perfect weekend all round. Of course, from our point of view. And in games, we spoke about starting well, getting on the front foot, causing teams problems. Well, that's not really what we did in this game. Started a bit on the back foot, and Kelros might have saved us at the end of the game, but he didn't half keep us in the game in the opening exchanges. Calum, 2 brilliant saves.
Absolutely brilliant thoughts from Kelly Wilson. Going into the game, wasn't sure who's actually going to be in goals at that point, but when we started like that, I was particularly worried. But he came up big when it mattered, and I think that had we conceded early on, sort of the dejection that certainly the crowd might have felt. I know there was a long way left in the game and plenty of time to turn it round, but you would have wondered perhaps if the confidence might have sapped from the players again, and they might have thought, "Oh, here we go again." I know I certainly would have thought, perfect, right? As Barry Robson's been announced until the end of the season, we've gone and lost immediately.
Yeah, there would have been such an inevitability about it.
Yeah.
There would have been such a predictability even about it had we got off to the worst possible start and gone on to lose the game. Because of course, as well, you've got to remember that horrible stat that we've still got lingering over us, the fact that we have not claimed any form of points having gone behind in a game this season. So not one that we're proud of, and certainly not the start you'd been looking for. But on top of Kelrose keeping us in the game at one end of the pitch, birthday boy Andy Constantine got the birthday card he didn't want at the other end, inside 5 minutes, receiving a red card for hauling down Bojan Miovski. I've seen a couple of takes for people saying Bojan should have maybe still tried to get on the end of it, or could have got on the end of it and finished it. But I think you've got to clever play from Bojan there, going down and getting the man sent off, and you give us pretty much 90 minutes against 10 men.
I think so. I think in the long run, it was clever play from Bojan. I suppose the contact is minimal. I
Makes
think
the
you
most
would
of it,
say
doesn't he?
he absolutely makes the most of it, but at the same time, that's it breaks my heart to say it, but that's the type of thing you'd see from Considine a lot of times over the years. He's a very much a handsy defender, I think you could say, and that's probably being generous. Just on his birthday though was a bit upsetting, and actually there was a comment on the video prior to the Ramirez one where I'd mentioned uh, uh, about shaving off the mustache if
Oh
Luis
yeah.
Lopez scored a hat trick. Someone actually commented, but I didn't agree to, which is the crucial part, that if Considine gets sent off, then I'd have to shave off my mustache. So I'm just glad I didn't agree to that.
Yeah, I think that was Paul Donaldson, and I'm sure he's tuning into this video just now as well.
Yes,
I'm
he
dis-
is.
I'm disappointed you didn't agree to that. Actually, we need to think of something for this weekend's game.
Hmm.
Um, that
Do
we
we?
can. Yeah, yeah. Why not? You're not going. I'm just going to say it happened anyway.
Well, exactly. That's what's. Hey, it needs to be if I'm there, then I'll need to. I'll be able to tell the truth and know the truth. However, also I would say when when the red card was given, we all thought it was a penalty, and I was totally bemused when in fact it wasn't, but that was the right decision.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it must have been frustrating at the game as well for how long that decision took to ultimately come to the correct decision with sending Andy Considine off and awarding the free kick. But again, just shows the kind of downside of a fan experience when VAR gets involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose at least on this occasion they came to the right decision. Just the fact it was eventually, it's just a bit of a pain in the neck,
Yeah.
especially when the game sort of just first started. Still, you're still up for it at that point, and it's just sort of it dulls it down a little bit. But must admit, I was pretty sad to see that it was Andy Constantine, but yet not surprised.
No, not at all. And just thinking about that moustache as well, we could come to an agreement for the Ross County away game since we're both going to be on the bus. We can do that on the bus on the way home if it comes in.
Okay, but can we do it when I'm a little bit more sober than I might be by the time the kickoff rolls round?
Well, we'll see what happens. I busted Dingwall with a shaver with a razor on it. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh God, I'm sure Chris would be delighted about that aspect.
Yeah. Back to the game on Saturday. The first half seemed to be a game of few chances from the highlights that I caught up on. Is that fair to say? A game that we kind of struggled for large parts to break St Johnston down.
Yeah, it was very dull. Very, very, very dull. If I'm completely honest, it was a really, really poor game. not a lot of quality, and I suppose that's often the nature against St Johnstone. As I said, the pitch didn't help, but we struggled to beat them down, and at times, sort of Shinnie, Ramadani, Clarkson as well, trying to make things happen, but for whatever reason, wasn't coming off. But we weren't quite clicking, and it was poor. It wasn't fantastic, and probably not what you'd quite expect from us. I suppose from recent weeks, but I suppose once again, at least we were clinical in the end, which I guess is something that is sort of. Well, I say clinical. That is generous, but we took a
Yeah.
chance when we got it, thanks to Matthews. I don't know what he was doing, but we'll come on to
Yeah.
that.
I know I was going to say you're being awfully kind tonight if you're saying we were clinical based on that, because of course the one maybe as close as we came without the helping hand of the
Absolutely.
goalkeeper was the chance from the edge of the box that Yilba Ramadani had. And, I had to watch that chance a good few times because I was like, did that just hit the post or did Matthews
Mm.
make a bit of a meal of it? Maybe a sign of things to come. But one thing that I've noticed in recent weeks, and I don't know if this is something that we can credit Steve Agnew, Barry Robson, maybe a joint effort from both, is that we look so much more threatening from set pieces now
Mhm.
with the addition of Matty Pollock and Angus MacDonald. And of course, from the corner that leads to the goal, Angus MacDonald's really unlucky not to score with his header back across goal that Remy Matthews on that occasion does really well to tip round the post.
I mean, that was probably the better attempt of the
Yeah.
two, if
Okay.
we're being honest. Um, it was a good save, but I mean, I think we do look more threatening from set pieces. I don't know whether that's just the added. I think a lot of it's certainly the added height and presence of Matty Pollock, especially, but we just look more threatening. I think with like some McCrory, Scales, as well as the two centre backs, we just got more of a physical presence. And Pollock's able to bully people. Clearly, McDonald is certainly capable in the air, and it's encouraging. But the deliveries, I think, seem to be better as well because previously from set pieces, God, we'd been awful.
Yeah, because I remember earlier in the season we were very much complaining about the quality from Johnny Hayes, but he's improved that. Of course, bagging the assist for the goal at the weekend as well. But Leighton Clarkson, we know what he can offer from a set piece as well. And well, Matty Pollock as well with his balls into the box as well if he's not getting on the end of them. But not only as you said, Matty Pollock is a threat from the set pieces as well, but I think the fact that he is seen so much as a threat allows Angus MacDonald to kind of go that bit unnoticed in the box. You've also got
Mm.
Ross McCrory, who's good in the air as well, and well, Duke always seems to get left on mark, and we've seen his ability in the air as well. So for once, we now actually. I didn't think last season we had a lot of options from corners and free
Mm.
kicks, but certainly this half of the season we are now better loaded in the attacking sense going forward at set pieces.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's a good point about a lot of focus is probably on Pollock, and you've still got a lot of other guys there who are over 6 foot, and as I say, in addition to Dooku, who's very handy in the air despite being just a little boy.
Yeah, and just on Duke, because of course there was quite a few comments, and Paul Donaldson picks up on that about Duke having quite a quiet match. Of course, away on international duty and being with Cape Verde, I think there was a lot made that he didn't get back until Thursday at some point from international duty. So whether or not there was just that, obviously the travel involved, but he wasn't involved in the game on Tuesday night for Cape Verde, just sat on the bench for 90 minutes. So I wondered as well, having played the game on the Saturday, which they lost 1-0, if he was maybe potentially playing with a bit of a knock. Having not played for Cape Verde, of course, I don't think Barry Robson came out to say one way or another, but just wonder if there was maybe a slight fitness concern around Duke this weekend past. Of course, getting back to Pittodrie, let him do what he does best this weekend against Kilmarnock.
Absolutely. That is very possible, but he certainly had what appeared to be an off day, and it probably was a lot to do with the travel and things like that. And he's played a lot of football when he hadn't really been doing that prior at Benfica B. He spent a lot of time
Mm.
coming off the bench last season. And I suppose in a very physical league where he's getting booted from pillar to post as well, probably doesn't help. But he was poor, and he looked a little bit lethargic. But I think if
Mm.
anyone's afforded that right now, probably him, given the form he's been in. It's just a bit disappointing. Again, referring to that form he's been in, you would have expected more. But also, I think with the game not flowing excellently at all,
Mm.
that certainly would have helped. Wouldn't have helped. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he definitely thrives in a game with a higher tempo where there's a bit
Mhm.
more space to run into. But one thing I do like about doing these lives is obviously the fact that we have so many of you joining in and interacting with the show, posing questions to us throughout when we're making these points of discussion. And I guess David McLennan, David often comments on our videos on YouTube speaking about the rebuild of the squad that we've got ahead of the summer. And he poses the question, should we look to tie up Angus MacDonald early for next season? And I just wonder if certainly the question, I would hope, has already been posed of him, because he's on that short-term permanent deal until the end of the summer, if he does fancy extending his stay in the Northeast into next season as well.
I would like to see it done. Certainly the partnership he's had with Pollock, but I suppose then the biggest question is who's he going to be playing against, playing alongside next season? Will it be as
Anthony
convincing?
Stewart.
Yeah, let's hope not. Um, I would like to see it. I think if you can offer him even just next season, the full season next year, maybe with an option to extend it for another year, just because he's solid. He's solid if nothing else. And even if we do bring in other centre backs completely ahead of him, at least he's someone who can be relied on. I would like to see it, and I suppose for him tying up some sort of future would be ideal as well.
Funny though, I seen someone make a point on Anthony Stewart saying, would he not thrive in this defense because we're not a ball playing defense anymore? We're just a no nonsense, get rid of it defense. Which, of course, when George from the Wickham Wade joined us at the start of the season, said it's exactly what Anthony Stewart is.
Possibly, but I don't know. I don't know. I just think well, he'd have some making up to do. I think. Let's put it that way.
And of course, Kaiser, a regular who joins us on these live videos, says fits happening with the boy McCandy. I saw him on Ross McCroy's Instagram story today. It looks like they were at Starbucks, so maybe he's just
Nice.
touring the Starbucks in the Northeast, but certainly not getting much minutes. Although, of course, with Graham Shrea's suspension, there's maybe going to be a reshuffle in the midfield. Be interesting to see if he features at all.
Yeah, it's been a pretty weird one. I think I remember seeing him for about 5 minutes at the end of one of the games, and I can't remember which it was at home.
St Mirren, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it's interesting because you would have thought perhaps in a game where Duke's not at his best, he looks leggy, he looks lethargic. That might have been a chance to give him an opportunity
Yeah.
and see if he can make something happen when the game's been a bit sort of stuffy. Give him sort of the chance there, but I mean, it's a bizarre one, and the fact he's got the number 10 as well
Yeah.
off his sticky toffee is just annoying.
Did this weekend show you a different side of this Aberdeen team, Calum? Because when Johnny Main's been on the podcast with us previously, he's rightly, I think it's fair to say at the time, had question marks around the team's mentality, the team's character. And I think it was really fair to have questioned that at points this season. But certainly maybe the players and management, of course we can call them that now, maybe answering a few of those questions around their mentality and character over recent weeks, but maybe more so on Saturday by really grinding out and digging in to get that 3 points. Because as you said, the cliche is a sign of champions winning ugly, but a sign of a good team and a team with a point to prove doing the exact same this weekend.
Yeah, I think it is. I think first of all, I think it was fair to question it absolutely earlier in the season, but I think it is. Uh, uh, it was a different kind of win. And we sort of alluded to it
Mhm.
earlier. in the episode, as you just said. We've gone there. It's not been pretty, but they've ground out the result after getting what was a bit of a dodgy goal. But it was they showed a bit more determination about it and a willingness to fight for the cause. I think you saw it. Kelroos made his save late on, fantastic save, and Scales is there immediately to boot it clear, whereas previously, even early in the season, you probably would have expected the rebound to be tapped home with absolute ease. But they're determined to get that 3 points and determined to keep clean sheets now, which is encouraging, but also kind of begs the question, why? Because that's the bare minimum. Why was it not like that earlier in the season? But credit to Robson for at least getting it out of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and like we said, it just shows that different side, and maybe obviously for you being at the game, we saw that more in the second half. Would that be fair to say? Because a lot of the comments that I read from those at the games were the fact that St Johnstone were maybe the better team in the second half, and we did really have to grind that out. And did you feel we were holding on at any point?
Towards the end, perhaps a little bit. They had a few attempts which weren't convincing. But I certainly remember Phillips putting one over the bar, and they were starting to put on the pressure a little bit more. And it, yeah, they probably had the better chances throughout the game if you consider the ones even prior to Constantine's sending off. So it is encouraging that despite all that, they still managed to hold on to it. Hold on to what we had, got the lead, hold on to what we have, and come back up the road with 3 points. But it wasn't convincing at times. I think it is fair to say that St Johnstone probably did have most of the best chances of the game. I mean, Ryan Duncan put one wide. Of course, we hit the bar, but that was just a bit awkward in general. And the goal was an absolute gift, really.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a few folks saying maybe St Johnstone will feel aggrieved because they probably deserved a point, but at the end, who cares? We've got the 3 points and we're back in that really now in that race for third. And of course, now with just being the 1 point behind Hearts, third place is firmly back in our own hands. And who'd have thought we'd have been saying that at the end of January? But of course, it's great to be speaking about a win, a clean sheet, but there is a small black mark against the victory at the weekend, of
Mark,
course.
you could say.
Oh, yes, Calum. I'm disappointed I didn't think of that pun. Graham Shinney receiving his first ever career red card, which is another quite remarkable stat. This podcast is going to be full of them at this rate. Although I think for me, I'm actually after seeing it, I'm really annoyed that that is the way our captain is being sent off.
Absolutely. First of all, unbelievable that it's his first red card given the way he plays, but he's always one that sort of runs the line very closely but very well when in that situation. He only picks up a lot of yellow cards. The first one seems ridiculous, if I'm honest. I couldn't believe he'd been booked at that point. The referee Colin Stevens seemed very eager to get that yellow card out. But the second one, there's just no need. It was silly. It was. I was thinking, it's harsh for a red, but at the same time, you would expect it to be a yellow had he not already been booked. I just think it's a bit. I don't know. I feel like he was desperate to get the card out once again, whereas sometimes you see them sort of let go, but it was very stupid from Shane to go in like that in a nothing area for no real reason. I know it's the way he plays, and that'll never change, but have a bit of sense about it, mate.
Yeah, I think the first yellow card, obviously, I put in the notes that it was obviously it was for dissent, but seeing, I think he was maybe aggrieved that the free kick wasn't awarded straight away, and there was obviously a little bit looked like a late challenge on Duke as well. So I don't know if he was looking for maybe an explanation on that as well. But one of the boys at work I was speaking to today, he was sitting in the main stand and he said it was quite clear from his seat the referee told him to move away on more than one occasion. But of course, you do expect your captain to be in the ear of the referee and look to get his opinion across. But Certainly, general consensus that I saw on social media on Saturday evening was the referee pretty much had a poor performance all round. At least though he did get the red card decision right, although you could argue that was more down to VAR than Colin Stephen himself. But yeah, I think, as a captain, shoe on the other foot. If this was Anthony Stewart, would be a lot of our fans would have been sitting here berating him for getting himself sent off in that fashion. But because it's Graham Shinney, he almost gets a free pass for being sent off because he shows passion when he pulls on the Aberdeen shirt. But again, people could say, oh, well, he's only missing Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock have a terrible away record. Like, we should still win without Graham Shinney. But we shouldn't be having this discussion because Graham Shinney shouldn't have got himself sent off. It was a really poor, probably a bit of moment of madness, maybe still rattled from his earlier booking. I just think, as you said, it's in a nothing area of the pitch and you're giving a referee an easy decision to get a card out. And when you're on a booking and the captain, just for me personally, it's annoying. It was avoidable as well. And we're going to have to deal without his presence in midfield on Saturday.
And just thank God the game's at home, because that maybe softens the blow a little bit. Had it been down there, I certainly would have been very worried.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did see a couple of you pose the question about who comes in for Graham Shinney into that midfield now ahead of the weekend's game. We'll cover that in a minute when we come on to the Kilmarnock preview. Kelly Rose, of course, back in the Aberdeen team, whilst Tom Ritchie said at the weekend that Jay Horter's picked up a bit of a knock, which is why, once again, he was not in the matchday squad. But Kel's really staking a claim to make sure that he remains between the sticks.
What's happened? Is Glen gone? What's going on?
Oh, I think the Tutor Wi-Fi decided to have a bit of a hurricane area. Can you hear me again?
I can, and you're not frozen anymore, so that's good. What was it you were saying? Sorry.
Well, what I was saying was, with Kelleros being back in the team and Tom Ritchie seeming to confirm that Jay Horter was picked up a bit of an injury, which is why he was not in the matchday squad again. Kel's really put down a marker to Barry about why he should be number one going forward for the rest of the season.
I think so. That save at the end of the game was absolutely brilliant, and mentioned the two earlier in the game as well, which the game could be very different had he not pulled off those stops. It's weird. It's a weird position to be in because part of he's like, oh, I want to see the exciting goalie. He's a nutcase. He's on loan from Ajax. I want to see him, but Kelleros probably deserves it. He deserves the gloves at this point, and for once, it's a good problem to have, I suppose, and it's not. Oh, not Joe Lewis again. We've got two good goalkeepers ahead of him.
Yeah, and we've got a very expensive goalkeeper sitting on the bench doing nothing. But of course, Joe Lewis did serve as well all those years ago. It's just sadly gone a bit downhill for poor Joe in recent months. But on the defence as well, of course, that's back-to-back clean sheets for Kel. But the defence in general, Calum, remember that easy-to-fix defence that Jim Goodwin said? Under Barry Robson, in his first 3 games, we conceded 8 goals. Of course, not helped by the fact that one of those games is against Celtic. The first game, we were down to 10 men very early on and end up conceding 3 against St Mirren. That was 8 goals conceded in 17 days. Since then, we have not conceded from open play and only conceded because Jack McKenzie, as you well remembered, lost his footing and cleaned out the Dundee United forward in that game against Tannadice, only conceded that penalty. We were praising Steve Agnew or Barry Robson for the improvement in us going forward at set pieces, but you've got to credit both of them for making us hard to beat at the other end of the pitch.
Absolutely. And I think credit goes also to whoever identified Matty Pollock and Angus Gunn. I think they have played a big part. But at the same time, on the training pitch, you've got to work on that, got to work on the shape and get their understanding to the right level. And it's weird given how shit we were. It's hard to believe that, other than those two centre backs, a lot of them were the same players that conceded 5 at Tynecastle, 6 at Easter Road, 4 at Tannadice. It's quite hard to believe, but it's steps in the right direction. I think still at times there's maybe some stuff still to work on, and it'll be interesting with who's in that defence, who's in the midfield against Kilmarnock, see how they adapt. But it's encouraging. My only concern is obviously that Scales not signed up for next season, Pollock not signed up for next season, McDonald not signed up for next season. So this time
Mhm.
next year we could be in the same spot that we were previously.
Yeah. I don't know how many people managed to hear your terrific answer because I think there was once again a little bit more Wi-Fi problems, probably from my end. So apologies for that. But again, that last point you make though is another good point because that is the point that David's been making on the videos in recent weeks about that rebuild that we've got on our hands coming up in the summer as well, but also maybe just credit to Barry Robson for being able to throw players like Pollock, McDonald, as David points out in the comments on tonight's live, that they never played together when they signed, and we've got them looking like they've played together for years, looking very comfortable. I'm really nervous about saying that, and I don't want to jinx them ahead of this weekend, but um, lots to be positive about. And as we said before we went live tonight, we were someone liked a comment that one of us, and we can't remember who it was, put up in response to the Jim Goodwin sacking video that we did, where in response to a comment around Barry Robson, hopefully just being in charge for a couple of games, and one of us replied saying, hopefully Robson can stabilize things for a couple of games at least, and we see an improvement in results. 5 wins out of 6 isn't bad, Barry.
No, not at all. And getting us into contention for third place as well, which seems mental. And I'm still apprehensive about it all, if I'm honest. Just, I don't know how it's going to go. But the fact we're even in that situation where it's a realistic possibility at this stage, I think massive credit has to go to them. So, I think certainly from the interviews, the large part you can gather is that they've gone back to basics and we're getting the basics right rather than uh, just being like, oh, it'll be fine, and then trying to play this brand of football that we've not got players for and overcomplicating things. We've stripped it back and it's working, which is encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as a result of a very successful March, Barry Robson deservedly won Manager of the Month. As we said on Twitter, richly deserved award for Barry and his whole coaching staff. But also in the awards for the month of March was Duke, winning Player of the Month. Great to see the club finally getting some recognition for achievements that we've been doing on the pitch.
Absolutely, and I think it was Free Chitty said, maybe not on Twitter, that that's the first time we've had a player and manager of the month since McInnes and Cosgrove, which is a bit mad.
Mm.
But both richly deserved, and I love that Barry Robson got his whole coaching staff involved, and Duke was just being a little cutie in his video and photos as well, which I loved as well. And richly deserved. So hopefully, if they can bag another one of those before the end of the season, then we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, well, and I also think as well, with having come through the game on April Fools with not making a fool of ourselves, we could potentially, given the run in April, we could see Barry Robson going back to back as manager of the month.
Now that would be madness, and I hope you've not jumped the gun there, and it's all going to go disastrously. Considering I was saying prior to recording this, I'm worried about Kilmarnock. You're going, I'm worried about Ross County, and we've got Rangers in there as well.
There's nothing to be worried about, let's be honest. And if Barry was to win the April Manager of the Month award, we could see Liam Fox in the photo because, of course, Liam Fox has joined the backroom staff. What's your thoughts on that appointment?
Interesting. He's thought of as a good coach, and the fact he's been brought in as that, and he's third, sort of third in command, that's encouraging. And I suppose it allows us to rejig things back to sort of a normal structure, and a little bit more, just sort of more hands on deck kind of thing, which is encouraging. And however, at times when things were going badly on Saturday, I was just yelling Fox out. So anything that goes badly now is going to be blamed on him.
Yeah, I think, as a lot of people have pointed out, he is not, just because he was a bad manager at Dundee United does not mean he is now a bad coach. As you said, he was very
Yeah.
highly thought of as a coach. My kind of worry around it was, did we need it for 9 games as such? More kind of down the unnecessary wage route. But as a couple of
On that
folk
point.
yeah, as a couple of folk pointed out on social media as well, though, was it possibly then allow Scott Anderson to go back into looking after the under 18s, and allow a bit more focus on that, or maybe even allow Liam Fox to help support that side of the team as well, going back to how good his coaching ability is. So, yeah, maybe thinking bigger picture, where
Mm,
I was very narrow minded and thinking first team only.
yeah, and also, although he's probably not on that level. I mean, Ian Cathro shite with Hearts, Liam Fox shite with Dundee United. However, Ian Cathro has also worked at the likes of Tottenham, Valencia, Newcastle United as well. So
Yeah.
bad manager doesn't always mean bad coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to the Kilmarnock game, I just want to say congratulations to the work that Chris Gavin and Duncan Fraser put in, as the club announced over the course of the weekend that they have managed to secure an additional 6 Cup Winner Cup medals to be awarded to those who missed out on the back of the victory 40 years ago in Gothenburg as the Dons defeated Real Madrid. Excellent work by all involved to get that over the line. And of course, those that can will be presented their medals at the ceremony that's being held at Pittodrie on Friday, the 12th of May. Which I think is a ticketed event that fans can get to. So, of course, maybe an opportunity for those tuning in to go along and see that as well. So, but I just think, yeah, great work by the club to do that, and good that the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson will finally get his hands on a medal that he richly deserves.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. Richly deserves, and I can't believe him and Archie Knox didn't get one in the first place. That seems madness to me.
Yeah.
But absolutely deserved. It's been a long time coming, and I mean, will Fergie have room for it on his trophy cabinet? I don't know. Hopefully.
Yeah, it'll complete the collection finally for him. But as we're getting confident and looking ahead to April, Kaiser rightly keeping us in check here on the live tonight. First things first, Kilmarnock at home. And it is the Ayrshire Killie boys coming to town on Saturday as the Dons look to keep their momentum in the race for third against a travelling side that has just won 2 out of a possible 45 on the road this season in the league. Is this the banana skin game, Calum? You think so?
I'm worried. I'm worried. You know, Robson's just been given the job until the end of the season. They've been terrible away from home. They have just beat Hearts. However, no, that's a confidence boost. McInnes and Robson, McInnes signed Robson. It's all sort of shaping up to be a disaster. That's what I'm terrified of. However, try to think more logically and not just thinking about all these little side stories. They have been awful away from home. We've been notoriously good away from home. At home, sorry, not away from home. And we're looking good. Just hopefully we'll be able to cope without Graham Shinney and everything will be okay. I'm not going to be there. I'll be moving, carrying boxes, trying to check the score. It'll be a disaster. But hopefully, in my absence, everything will just be okay. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be 3-0, Duke hat trick, no problem, next.
I admire your confidence. I don't share it.
Well, somebody's got to be, since you are severely letting the side down now with your lack of confidence these days.
I don't know what's gone into me, but it seems to be working for us, Glenn. Don't know
It
if you've
seems
heard. Fourth
now
leg?
that we've actually become a decent footballing
Yeah,
side, you've lost your confidence.
yeah. I'm just being blasé about it. I don't care. We're not. I'm not. We're not going to win, but we're fourth in the league now, so it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Of course, a Kilmarnock side that struggled away from home. Yes, you rightly point out, maybe buoyed by the fact that they beat Hearts, but of course they do have a good record against the Tynecastle side at Rugby Park. They will be coming up here without Rory McKenzie, who after a VAR review at the weekend received a red card again. Not quite sure how the referee didn't give that as a red card straight away. Interesting to see how Derek McInnes approaches this game by who he replaces Rory McKenzie with in the starting lineup. Because I know that Alan Power didn't start the game against Hearts at the weekend. Does he bring Alan Power back into the side to maybe look to be more defensive and hard to beat, or does he look at the likes of Scott Robinson, who can maybe offer a bit more going forward, like a Rory McKenzie would have done?
Hopefully not Alan Power, because he is a shithouse jobber, horrible bastard. That
Well, I wonder though if he now does, because Graham Shinney's not there.
Possibly, and I suppose then if they're going physical, then that gives them a bit of an edge, which is actually a very good point. Because while he's maybe not technically the best, he is good at just being a prick, basically. So credit to him for that. I'm disappointed you mentioned Scott Robinson though, because I remember when I was mascot at like 8 years old, and he was just coming through at Hearts, and now he's like 30. And that's just upsetting.
Of course, Kilmarnock as well. Danny Armstrong, top scorer with 7 league goals, 5 assists. Certainly will be a threat that we'll need to keep an eye on this weekend. But they've also had the emergence of young David Watson, only 18, but was playing in the centre of that midfield. And again, I wonder if that's a player that someone like Yilba Ramadani can just get in his ear, just chirp him a little bit, maybe leave one on him and just see how he likes the physical side of the game.
Hopefully, but then I suppose that's where you'd have liked Shinny, because he's
Yeah.
very good at noising people up and getting under their skin. But hopefully, Gilbert can do it, or perhaps Ross McCrory if he's in there.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a slight second, because one last thing on the visitors is, of course, with McInnes's return to Pittodrie, it also means that Ash Taylor is coming back. But Ash Taylor has been dropped for the last 2 games, which has seen the Kilmarnock go unbeaten. Whether the two are linked, I'm not sure. But the third top goal scorer for Kilmarnock this season, as I said, has been missing, as Kilmarnock have gone to more of a back 5, a back 3 with two fullbacks in their home games against St Johnstone at Hearts. But do you think McInnes will be inclined to change that setup this weekend? Maybe look to go and bring Ash Taylor back into the fold at Pittodrie?
I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't. Which is man to say, as they've won the last 2 games without him. However, it would just be typical. But I do think we are better equipped now to deal with sort of their aerial threat from their defenders. And now
Yeah.
that we do have McDonald and Pollock, who are not such sort of soft touches. So, you know what, Derek? Play whoever you want. Play whoever you want, Derek. We know how they're going to play. They're going to try and peg it and hit us on the counter attack, and you make use of set pieces. But I'm a lot more confident in the boys we have in now. They've been playing well. They're organised. They're getting on well off the park, throwing arrows. So it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Of course, the biggest question from an Aberdeen point of view this weekend is who comes in to that midfield. Of course, with the absence of Graham Shinney. Do you move Ross McCrory, who I think has been excellent at right back in recent weeks, into that midfield? Thus, then maybe taking Jaden Richardson out of cold storage and bringing him into right back. You would also have the potential option to bring in Matt Kennedy at right back, of course, being out of favour the last couple of weeks. Or do you leave McCrory where he is? Because again, I don't really want to personally change the defence too much.
Mm.
Do you bring Connor Barron out of cold storage? Or does Patrick Mislavich get a chance for this game?
Oh, I don't want to play any of them. We just start with 10. That's what I've decided. Mislavich has barely had a chance, and when he came on against St Johnstone, he looked understandably miles off it.
Mm,
He's not really a direct replacement for Shinnie. In my book, it's a lot more creative, a bit more of a soft touch as well. Um, just in terms of style of play.
mm,
Connor Barron would probably be ideal, I think, for me in terms of keeping McCrory in the defence. However, he played for the under 21s and then not even on the bench on Saturday. So
yeah.
what's going on there? I don't know. Whether he's sort of aggravated something or whatever, I'm not sure. But you would have thought otherwise he would have been involved. Um, I think if you're bringing in either Richardson or McCrory, then or Kennedy, which I'd actually probably prefer Richardson, which is weird, then it has to be sort of the three centre backs with wing backs, because I think we need to have the three centre backs of protection,
Mm.
Hayes and Richardson as the wing backs who can then bottom on, and then you've got McCrory's physicality in midfield, which we'd maybe miss without Shinnie. So either start with 10, hope Barron's not still injured, or bring in Richardson for his redemption arc.
Well, we need the redemption arc to start somewhere, but I agree to an extent on Richardson because I think he could offer that dynamic burst of pace that we've been seeing from Ross McCrory recently and kind
Mm.
of driving forward from right back. But I don't trust him to defend just now.
Well, then
But
the three centre backs.
yes,
They've been
but then
looking
we're
good.
changing a formation. This is what I mean. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So I would, the simple solution is get Connor Bannon in there, and we don't need to change the defense. A defense that's been working. Let's
Mhm.
keep it as it is. Um, I just don't feel that's what we're going to do. I feel like there's something going on in the background with Connor Barron and his time at Aberdeen between now and the end of the season. We don't know what's going on. We're not privy to that information. We're just assuming.
I heard he's going on loan to Hearts.
Yeah, let's start well. Be careful because we'll be accused of putting a player in hospital for a panic attack if
Oh
we
God,
start those rumors.
that's true.
Um, so let's not go down that route. But we're not in the know with anything like that on any player movement. So just purely guessing that with a lot of the talk being that, of course, his out contract at the end of the season, potentially moving somewhere else, he's not signing a new deal. I just wonder if he's been frozen out a little bit. I say that's my opinion on the matter, but the obvious thing I think for us would be moving McCrory in, but I just think he's been settled at right back in recent weeks, and there's no kind of surprising why we've not conceded from open play since that Celtic game. Um, we'll leave ourselves exposed, and I'm sure if you're Derek McInnes, you're probably hoping that Ross McCrory gets moved out of right back into the centre midfield to allow the likes of Danny Armstrong to exploit a Matty Kennedy or Jaden
Oh,
Richardson.
yeah, good point. I hadn't considered that he's actually quite good,
Yeah,
and will be starting on probably on the right for them. Um, well,
May- may- may-
that would put him against our left back though, so it's fine. It's fine.
yeah, but they could move him to the left and change it. So
Likes coming in on his left, and that's where most of his goals come from. So it's not
mhm.
as big a threat that way, I would suppose. But it'll certainly be an interesting one. I think this is just another point: is the red card from Shinnie being so stupid, because it puts us in this situation where you've either got to either change the defense or bring in someone who's barely kicked a ball for us. In fact, anyway, you've probably got to bring in someone who's barely kicked a ball for us. So that's not ideal.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'd probably be leaning towards Matty Kennedy because he's the player that's got the most minutes under his belt in that situation. But then, again, that's potentially a little bit of a criticism you could have on Barry Robson that I know a few people have had in some of the games that he has given certain players a lack of minutes. You look at that Hearts game, he could have maybe afforded a few players more minutes under their belts than what he did, because that game was really done and dusted with 15 minutes to go. Could we have given some fringe players time there? But in terms of the Aberdeen side as well, I don't really see, other than that one change for whoever comes in for the suspended Graham Shinnie, I don't really see us making any more. We spoke about Keller Rose. I think, the save alone at the end probably justifies him starting again this weekend.
Yeah, that would be the only one I would be potentially expecting. But even then, at this stage, I'd probably be surprised, as you say, because he basically won us 3 points. But without him, would have been screwed on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, with Kilmarnock's poor away form, with our decent home form this season, is another big weekend in terms of that race for third. Hearts entertain St Mirren at Tynecastle, a struggling Hearts side, of course, against a St Mirren side, of course, buoyed by that victory over Livingston. So I'm sure going to Tynecastle in good confidence. And Hibs don't play until the Sunday. So a potential for us to really extend that gap to Hibs before they play. But with a positive performance, it could be one of those games where if we're winning at halftime and Hearts are not, and the scores get read out from around the grounds at halftime, the tension at Tynecastle could build further. And who knows, we could be sitting here next week producing the episodes, sitting about the Dons sitting in third place.
I mean, that would be the dream. That would be the dream, but I don't know. I mean, St Mirren have been good this season. Hearts, however, very good at home. And Hibs, Lee Johnson going up against managers, he's already gubbed 6-0 this season on Sunday. So I'm not confident that the results will go our way this weekend like they did last season. But we need to do our business anyway. Must-win game. Probably the next one must-win game. And then I must not lose. So let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get down to business. Let's get the 3 points. Let's keep that pressure on the Jambos, and let's keep that momentum train chugging along, because if we can get to Dingwall still a point behind Hearts, what an opportunity that gives us to go into that weekend when they've got an Edinburgh derby to look forward to, sitting in third place. That would be really exciting stuff for us, especially after where we were in January. But once again, it has been great to be doing a live episode tonight. A few technical issues, not as maybe bad as the last time we did the live. At least the audio quality hasn't been affected overall. So thank you very much to all of you who have joined us tonight on the episode, and of course interacted with us, providing some good options for us to discuss as well throughout the episode as well. And to all of you that have recently subscribed to the channel, I think we're now over 100 new subscribers since Monday. So thank you very much for the phenomenal support on here and on audio as well, if you're listening back to this episode in the build up to the game on Saturday. We'll be back next week ahead of the Friday night football game up in Dingwall. We'll get an episode out to you, reviewing the best of the action from the weekend's game against Kilmarnock, and then looking ahead to that trip under the lights up in Dingwall that we're both going to. That'll be a good day out, I'm sure.
The podcast might not be any good, mind you. Neither of us remember it.
No, absolutely not. But thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. Until next time.